Well, hello again. Pastor Ray Barnett here. Glad you could be with me for another lesson on God's answers for anxiety and depression. I want to wish all of you a good morning or a good afternoon or a good evening, depending on what time you're watching this broadcast. Today I'm here at Tribes Hill, town or so over from where I live in Amsterdam, New York. Founded in early 1700s, as most of these towns are. As a matter of fact, where I come from, Yonkers was founded in 1646. Yep, 1646. So everything here on the East Coast is pretty old. But you wouldn't have to guess very much how Tribes Hill got its name. So much history, and I love history. I saw a sticker on somebody's car the other day, and it said historian, the definition. Historian, you're much more interesting when you're dead. Well, I guess that's true. Think of all the people who are honored posthumously because their life's work is over in music or whatever it is, and then finally you say, wow, I really appreciated him or her. Well, anyway, all this week I have been talking to you about discouragement, and I'd like to finish up the week with that theme and my advice for you. By the way, for the last, 6 weeks now, this coming Sunday will be message number 7, where I've been preaching and teaching, which preaching for me is always teaching as well, but preaching on the overarching theme of encouraging words for discouraging days. And I'm hearing this come up more and more, not only the anxiety and depression issues that have developed over the last 6 months, but also the word difficult times and so forth, that I said yesterday. These teachings here, these specific teachings on discouragement, would be good for anybody. It's very general feeling. But for you, dealing with your nervous symptoms and so on, it becomes critical that you never quit. So, before I actually begin, let me just say something else. I don't want to forget this. For those of you watching, and maybe once in a while, even though you don't leave a comment, some do. And yesterday, we had a really encouraging comment. It comes from a young woman who I taught personally some years back when she was in our church before she moved down south. And it was really one of the most encouraging statements, or comments I should say, that we've had on this channel. One that she didn't mind putting out there for any of you to see it. So, I would suggest every so often, even if you don't make a comment, you could take time to read them. But in particular, this one here is very good. Out of my left ear, I can hear the train is coming. And this is this is phenomenal. I know you're going to start thinking, oh, Pastor Ray's setting us up. He's making up these things. Black Ops helicopter flying over my head looking at me, and dogs running behind me. But I don't. I'm telling you that I pick spots that I have come to over the years that are just so quiet. I mean, of course, the railroad tracks is right there, but ordinarily we don't have that many trains. So when it gets close, I'm going to have to pause the the talk, which won't cost you anything. You will hardly notice, other than I got to reach forward and touch the pause button, and then I'll be right back again. Again, you won't notice the difference, but it'll be a minute or more, depending how long the train is. Phenomenal. I guess that's a good segue to use it as an example. You would think by now I'm getting discouraged that no matter where I try to hide, if it's not a black ops helicopter, dogs running loose, and I'm telling you the truth, these are spots that I've come to over the years where ordinarily nothing happens. So I do think there's some type of demonic plan for these broadcasts. So let me pause this thing for just a second. For you it'll be a second. For me it's going to be who knows how long. I'll be right back. All right, it's passed. That was only a millisecond for you. For me, well, let's put it this way. My beard actually grew 1 inch waiting for that train to pass. Yeah, it's true. Had time for lunch. If you ever want to eat clean, I'll make you a shake and you'll change your mind about that too. All right. So, discouragement. It's not something that it's not something that you can afford to spend too much time. How do I say it? It's not something that you can afford to, well, you can't afford to quit. Let me just say it that way. We're all going to get discouraged. And in that discouragement, in that period of discouragement, that's when you have, well, whether you have anxiety or mental health diagnosis or depression, obviously, it's a type of depression. Think of the word discourage. Take off the prefix D-I-S, dis. And what are you left with? The word courage. And a courageous person does bold things. Discouraged people don't, because they have lacked or forfeited their courage. Look at, in the symptoms that you're dealing with, the situation that you're dealing with, you're going to have moments of discouragement when there's just no more courage. Momentarily, there's no courage to go ahead with conquering these symptoms. And look at, I just mentioned it in passing here or there. You really should watch my messages, because there I'm acting in my role as a preacher, where many topics are covered from the Bible. But I want to say that some discouragement does definitely have a spiritual element behind it, meaning Satan himself, who is definitely a real being. We know that from the scriptures. He's there from the very beginning in the book of Genesis, and we see him at the very end in the book of the Revelation. A very real person, and some of it, not all of it, but some discouragement that comes into our lives has satanic sources as well. Regardless of what the source is, and specifically speaking of Satan, we are taught in the New Testament, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So we have that to begin to encourage us, to remind ourselves that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. That's from the book of Isaiah, with a specific reference to Israel. However, it has application for us as Christians as well. So, discouragement is, as I shared with you this week, discouragement is something that everybody's going to have, and there are some of you going through it right now. And I told you Wednesday and Thursday, I told you that it's okay to back off a little bit and take the pressure off yourself. But there comes a point in time when we got to get busy with the game. Is it my imagination, or is there a bug right on the lens of my camera? Let me give him a little help to get out of here. I sure hope his wings didn't look like Mothra or Godzilla. Here he goes back to the lens again. This may be one of those broadcasts that just don't work out. Get out of here. So, as I was saying, discouragement, you're going to have it. Symptoms are going to return. I told you that. However, you cannot stay there. You can't. I would even suggest you can't camp out there. At least not too long. Catch your breath. Get your second wind. And then boom, you move on. I know that I've talked about this before. Improvising, adapting, overcoming. Improviso apto quod victum in Latin. But it's something that has to be repeated, as I've told you from the beginning of these broadcasts, that there's going to be things I'm going to repeat often. This is going to be one of them. Plans don't always work out. That's when you start to improvise. Now, just quickly as an example, when this COVID thing hit, and then we had all these restrictions and self-quarantining and what have you. My church was shut down for 4 months. I knew right away I got to make a plan. Even though my life wasn't really interrupted so much, but there was interruptions. So I sat down, I scratched out a plan. My gym is still not open. And this is an illustration of improvisation. So I scratched out a plan. Down on the floor doing push-ups, riding a stationary bike I got at the house. You wouldn't believe some of the improvisations I've done. I had to get weights, or I got weights. A friend of mine is a farmer, and they use these weights on tractors, and they have little handles on them, but they actually go on the tractor to keep it stable. Bought a couple of those just so I could lift. I mean, it's not near what I'm used to and not what I like, but because of the situation, you cannot buy weights anywhere. I could not get them, couldn't buy them. So anyway, improvisation, so I can continue to work out. I started another doctoral dissertation, which, if you're interested, is going to be my fifth. I went on a special diet, but that just happened to be coincidental. But you get the idea. I came up with a plan because I knew if I didn't, in the long haul, this could affect me. Now, let me address that as far as discouragement. We are all in a situation right now where discouragement can be more common than it would be ordinarily, which I guess in some ways, to get people's attention about life, could be a good thing. But for those of you suffering from symptoms, it could be very detrimental to your mental health. So then we have that thrown on top. So improvisation, adapting to the improvisation, and then overcoming and I just gave you one example from my own life of what I had to do concerning and exercise for me, by the way, is critical. For me, it's not just you do it, you don't do it. I do not feel good, and I've been working out for 56 years. I do not feel good when I do not exercise, and with all due respect for those of you who I know like to walk, walking don't cut it for me. It's got to be some kind of intense stretching myself type of, I don't mean physically stretching, I mean making myself push a little bit, and that's for me. So I improvised on a plan. So I'm giving you that as an illustration of what you may need to do with whatever your circumstance is right now, whatever it is, start to improvise if it's not going to work out for you. Going back to what I said Wednesday, Thursday, if you've been hit with a setback of symptoms, which can be related to our ongoing situation, and I'm reminding you, we are going to be facing more stress in the world, but I'll stick with just America, in the days ahead. So we're going to have to be prepared. And for those of you who suffer from nervous symptoms and also, depression, mental health, you're going to have to be prepared for this so it don't take you down and don't take you out, because that's not going to be good. So here we are. I use the word we, as you know now. It's not my broadcast as much, or even my lessons, as much as it is our. This idea of being together. It's not ideal. It's you're far removed. Many of you are in different states of the Union. Some are watching from outside the United States. All right, so it's unusual, but we're still together. I pray for you. I told you that. And I know this, at least some of you pray for me. I hope that all of you do. And see, we're in this together. We have got to stay together. We have got to stick together. On this broadcast here, I have now committed myself to it. It is now a part of my day, every day. And I'm saying all of that to prepare you for the future, so that you don't fall back into a serious depression, so that you don't fall back into acute anxiety, acute panic. And then, you notice I've left off some of these major mental health issues because they're confined to certain individuals. I'm trying to always keep it broad and generalizing, because the techniques work either way. I exhort you to watch, or rather to read the comment that was left yesterday on this station here. You'll see, again, this is a young woman who I personally trained for a while, and she's now doing very well, and I was very encouraged when I read her testimony. She's now watching this show, like you, from a different state. So discouragement is not something that we can afford, that you can afford, to stay too long in that mood, in that slump. But we all have it. So I suggest, here's something that I tell people a lot. When I'm speaking to people, and they're having issues, I tell them this, and it's good advice for you. The sooner you can accept life as it is, rather than what you thought it should be, what you hoped it would be, what you wished it would be, and so on, the quicker you can become a content, happy person. I think I've mentioned to you, my life didn't turn out even near the way I had thought and planned, but I'm in the hands of God, so it's all right. It's all right. See, because I'm accepting life as it is. I still have plans for the future, but I've got to deal with the situation in my life the way it is, not the way. In other words, look at. I could be sitting home in a slump, slumped over somewhere, and just saying, "Oh, nothing ever worked out for me," and poor me. Why did this? You go through that whole thing, and what would happen to me? I'd still be, in a slump somewhere, in the doldrums, not making any progress whatsoever. And the chances are, and most likely would be, my situation would get worse. Same thing will happen to you if you don't accept life as it is. For instance, I'm certain that many of you watching have asked, maybe God, directly, how come I got this? And for me, I don't find it as important to know why me as it is to just deal with it and move on. I know that's too simplistic for many people, but I hope that it helps you, because the more you sit around wondering why, the more life is passing you by. The more that you stay in the doldrums and question, the more your symptoms are either not being addressed or they're getting worse. So my advice to you is, I tell this to everybody, regardless of their situation. The faster, the quicker that you can accept life as it is, and not what you thought, what you wished, what you hoped, the better chance you have of getting quickly to an answer and getting relief, because you're going to take the situation as it is and you're going to assess it. It's like, again, combat. Every leader knows, I'll say generals in particular, a plan in combat is only good as the first shot. Then everything is chaotic and it's not working out precisely the way it was planned. And so you have to adjust the game plan. Now, as Providence would have it, I've got another train coming through. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. No skin off your nose. Another long train. I'm thinking, look, I know there's a little hiatus here, but I'm thinking that maybe next time I'm going to set up my chair here and the camera on the railroad tracks. This way the train has to stop. Well, keep an eye on the headlines in your newspapers in case I do it. So I'm sure it's not going to be too good for me. Okay, got to button this up. Discouragement comes, setbacks come. That's life. The more, or I should say the sooner, that you can accept life the way it is, adjust your plan, do what you have to do to make to assess the situation and make adjustments so you can go forward and conquer these nervous symptoms or this depression, whatever it may be, the better off you're going to be in the end. In other words, accepting it just the way it is, but then making an adjustment so there is an improvisation, and then you adapt to that situation and overcome it. That's what we're aiming at. Improvisation, adapting, and overcoming. I really do. I know that this is helping a lot of you. We have a lot of topics to cover with this broadcast that I'm doing. A lot of topics. And if you stay with it long enough, I'll say even a year, and you stay with it long enough, lesson by lesson. So I know some of you have written to me and told me that, you know, you're away for a couple of days, you catch up on the broadcast, which is great. That's great. Probably a wise thing to do. This way you're always in sync and you don't miss anything. But if you miss one or two here or there, well, all right, that's not going to hurt you so much. Nobody does anything perfectly. However, if you're willing, if you're just willing to stick with me, and I'll say a year, you're going to find that your symptoms are going to improve. And I'm hoping for a complete cure for you, complete deliverance, absolutely completely set free from anxiety, depression, and all of your mental health issues. So let me pray for you. Father God, once again I pray for my friends who are watching, learning, they're making progress. And I just pray, Lord, that you would give them peace and serenity, and just give them that will to overcome in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. And just very quickly, some of these broadcasts I'm going to have to mention to you about a sense of humor. It's probably not coming across so well to you with the unbelievable interruptions that I get. But I always find some sense of humor, well, most times I do, in things, and that helps to release tension. Okay, with that said, if you're interested in sticking with me with these lessons, they come in small installments. It's going to be long plan here. Then subscribe to the channel. As I said yesterday, we have been gaining subscribers, and that's really encouraging. Hit the notification button. I don't know much about a thumbs up, but I guess you could do that if you want to. If you enjoyed the lesson, got something out of it, at the very least it'll be an encouragement. You know, I get no feedback, very little feedback, so anything will help, but it's not mandatory. Subscribe if you want to stick with this lesson, these lessons, plural. Hit the notification button, and if you want to give me a thumbs up, that's okay too. And if not, that's all right. Okay, tomorrow I hope to do stories of my life, and I'll bridge that over into how it relates to anxiety and to depression. And then Sunday on our other YouTube channel, the Time for Truth Ministries, I'll be again preaching message number 7 on encouraging words for discouraging days. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow and Sunday. But if not, for some reason, then I'll see you on Monday. God bless, and thanks for being with me.